Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the season's first edition of the Insiders. I'm Fitz, and you can see the whole crew there. Big B, Brien Hanley, who ran the show, or the post-game show with Monty Spiller. Great job. It was really well viewed. Grant Stone and John Grove, two of our now student employees, but they're just employees to me. They're students in life. And Ryan Gilbert, who was my roommate for 1 week and is seeking counseling, but only counseling from an Irish lass. I don't know what he's up to. This will normally be live. We recorded this one. I think all but Big B just returned from Dublin. We're all sleep deprived, and if we record this at 6 or 8 at night, I might be in bed by 8 tonight. But so we will return to our normal format next week, which is 4 of us and one non-GoPowercat guest. But we're going to talk a little K-State football and what took place in Ireland and the loss. So let's just focus on the game with this show. We can all talk about our experiences, and that's fun and stuff, but people want to talk football. It's finally football season. Big B, you did a whole show on the game, post game, but as you've now had some more time to absorb the context of that 24-21 loss to Iowa State in the Aer Lingus Classic, what are your thoughts on the position the Wildcats are now after one game are in?
I mean, they're behind the 8 ball. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, you lose a game, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. It doesn't really matter when, though. And that's the whole thing. It's you lose the first game, you're behind the 8 ball. You lose game 8, you're behind the 8 ball, depending on what's going on in the conference. So, you know, they're behind. They just have to start playing better football. That's all. Mm-hmm. And they got exposed with some stuff week 1, which I think the coaches are smart enough to know, Fitz, that was going to happen.
Yep.
I'm not saying they thought they were going to lose. I think they knew, hey, we're playing against a quality opponent. Some of the things that we don't do well, we're going to know real early, which in most years we don't know. You know, we don't know the things because we're just so much more dominant than another team that you can just go out there and do some of the stuff. And maybe even the kids' minds that they get out there, oh, we're just better, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to do this, yada, yada, yada. It happens. You know, coaches do their best, but when you're out there physically dominating another opponent, it's tough to convince a kid, hey, you need to do this, this, this. That becomes difficult. But we got exposed in some areas that we need to work on. And quite frankly, be honest, I'm happy about it because now you can go, first of all, you got their attention because you got beat. Second of all, hey, what do we need to do to get better? We got a long way to go to get to where we want to go, but we have a long way. That's the thinking. And we don't have just 1 week left. We got a long way to go. So I think it's fine. They'll be okay. They just got to keep working. They got to make it better. It's not just going to magically appear. But at the same time, if the locker room is what we all believe it to be, I think they're going to work on the deficiencies and get it fixed.
Grant, I absolutely love your lighting now. It's so dramatic and wonderful. If you could come up with an evil laugh, that'd be fantastic. So while I got you, Grant, give me your thoughts on the result of the game and what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I think Big B made a lot of good points there. I think our margin of error now is just razor thin, and you know, you can't afford to lose 2 or 3 conference games anymore in the very competitive conference. And, you know, week 0, there's obviously going to be some rust you got to get off, and your team's not going to be at full strength. You've got a lot of new guys and new positions and playing bigger roles. And when you play a quality opponent like Iowa State, there is no margin for error. And when you turn the ball over a couple times and you can't get the offense rolling in the first half and the defense starts to slip up in the second half, you know, you're not going to win a football game playing like that. So I think there's going to have to be some readjustments, not only from the coaching staff, but from a player's perspective. And you're going to have to come out aggressive against North Dakota and make a statement and figure out who your playmakers are going to be going forward. And it doesn't get any easier after North Dakota. You've got a quality opponent in Army who won, you know, an AAC conference championship last year. And, you know, those military schools have been giving some teams some troubles in previous years. I mean, we lost to Navy, I'm not sure how many years ago in the Liberty Bowl, but those are good football teams. So it's not going to get any easier. And definitely going to need to see some adjustments here going forward.
Is Army allowed to throw the ball? Because that'd be an aerial attack. I think that's very confusing.
Yeah, just Air Force, I believe.
Playing Navy really sucks. It was like the first half in Ireland. John Grove, part of the 91.9 outstanding broadcast, first ever broadcast by the student radio station, international one, I should say. And John, give me your thoughts on what we saw.
Yeah, I think this game just boils down to Kansas State just failing to convert their chances. You had 4 drives inside Iowa State's 35-yard line, and it resulted in 0 points. And Avery Johnson had several mistakes, but he played. I would have to say the stats are a little bit less telling based on the results, and I'm not going to put all the blame whatsoever on Avery Johnson. But bigger problem was the overall execution. My dog is whining everywhere, but we're just off to the races. But
yeah, it's good.
K-State's defense gave the offense multiple chances, especially in the first half, but they failed to capitalize. And as the game continued to wear on, the defense just tend to wear down, especially when they tend to give Iowa State kind of a silver platter of momentum late in that contest. Special teams was a little bit of a mess as well. There was several crucial penalties there, but K-State dominated statistically, but in a lot of categories. But Iowa State played, and they made the plays that mattered the most.
You got it.
And for Kansas State, they cleaned up the mistakes, matching Iowa State's tough. They had to clean the mistakes in order to try and match Iowa State's toughness if they wanted to win and try and improve kind of the overall structure of the program. But it just seems as if, and I think, Fitz, you mentioned this last year, that Matt Campbell and Iowa State have essentially stolen what K-State was known for, and that's capitalizing on the little mistakes and capitalizing when you have the opportunity to there's just no killer instinct factor with this team. I guess that's the best way of saying it overall. So, overall, just a frustrating result all around.
I have a moth in my studio. What was going on in here while I was gone? Ryan Gilbert, thoughts?
What's up, Fitz?
Hi.
How you doing,
I've
man?
talked to you in at least
a long time.
2 hours.
I can't get away from you, virtually or in person. But yeah, Big B, Grant, John, you guys kind of all brushed over the main topics, main storylines from the game. I've been one that has said this was not a make or break game year entering the contest. And obviously Kleiman and his players have kind of been consistent with that message. Of course, it stings, it bites. You give up the home game. I get it. But, Big B, I love the point you made about losing a game. You can learn so much more from a loss than you can a win. So, adversity is really where character is built. We're going to see what this K-State team is made of, not only on Saturday against North Dakota, but, guys, there's still 11 more of these remaining. And, fans were in an uproar on Saturday following the loss. And, of course, that's to be expected. But I think give it 24, 48 hours. All right, turn the page. It's a 1-week season, as Kleiman likes to say. We've got a lot more of these to come.
Yeah, I've shared my opinions on post-game power talk and daily deliveries, but John, for me, nailed it. It just came down to a few plays. Both teams turned it over. Both quarterbacks had their moments. Avery's was defined by big strikes, big plays. I heard someone criticize that most of the stats came on big plays. I'm like, so? That's good.
Nothing
big
wrong
plays
with that.
are good. But what I've always said about Rocco Beck, their quarterback, is not defined by stats. He's defined by doing the things as it takes to win. And he did that. When it was a 4th down, they would pick it up. And whether that was him executing or the play calls coming in from the sidelines, I don't care. They did it on 4th down, going 3 of 3. K-State was 1 of 4. And those little things, that half yard, quarter yard, whatever it was that Avery Johnson was short on the 4th down on that run, that was probably the difference. That probably crippled K-State's chances, made it almost impossible once that turned into points. And people have been critical of that. Folks, you would have been critical if K-State punted that ball right there on a 4th and 1, and Iowa State never gave the ball back or scored with very little time left because they were doing a better job of possessing the ball in the second half. Look, second guessing decisions because you didn't pick up the first down. I do it too sometimes, but I think in this case, you got to look at the alternative. I thought it was interesting. I asked Coach Kleiman about the choices to not kick field goals. And the first time they thought this is a game that touchdowns are needed. Ironically, the field goal would have been huge. And they were stopped. Again, that is Iowa State making the play and Kansas State not on a fourth down. And then there was another possibility of a field goal attempt. He clarified that is within, I just spaced off his name, Luis Rodriguez. Jeez. Yeah. The new kicker that was brought in because they were already seeing some injuries with their kicking. They brought him in right before camp opened, and he is their best kicker. So he was within range at, I think they were around the 32, 33.
33.
Yeah. Folks, that's a 50-yarder. So that's a lot. That's a pretty good leg. Not overly powerful, like we've seen at Kansas State, but in the college game right now, that's very reasonable. But that field was a mess. So kickers couldn't really plant very well. And also something we don't think about, but you do if it's a baseball. Ireland is extremely humid. It was a very strange humidity. It would be 66 and you were hot. You were sweating. And that air was really heavy after all that rain in the first half. It did rain a significant amount. And I talked about that. K-State's got to get better in non-perfect conditions. But that's all that's off the table. I've said this and I'll say it again. I said it before the game. Whoever loses this game, all that's off the table is going undefeated. That's it. Yeah, everything else is still in front of you. But Big B, this game has cost teams such as Florida State. Kellis Robinette pointed this out at the press conference. Almost every loser has fallen apart after this. And people were critical of Chris Kleiman not being, emotional enough, or it didn't seem like they understood the price, the cost. I think he does. He just doesn't want the players to be so invested that the loss leads to something else. Not that they would lose to North Dakota, but other things down the line. And I think that's a wise move. Teams can kind of come apart mentally, can't they, within that locker room?
I mean, they can, and maybe I don't understand what people want. Do they want coach to just emotionally fall apart and be distraught? Yeah. I'm like, that's not his job. Like, his job is to keep the locker room together. And again, if the mantra is, hey, it's just one loss, then doesn't the leader have to carry that mantra? So yeah, it's just one loss. It's a big one. Nobody should shy away from saying that it's not a big loss. It was a big game. Nobody should shy away from that. And if you do, you're kind of lying to yourself about what the game meant. Having said that, it's still one game, and you have an opportunity, like you said, Fitz, to accomplish literally every single goal that you have set out for yourself. There is no goal that you can't accomplish unless it's to go undefeated. Well, okay, great. You can't go undefeated. Other than that, you can accomplish it. And I think Coach Kleiman is just doing what he's supposed to do as a head football coach and say, you know what? We lost. We didn't want to lose. We wanted to win. But we have a game next week. And then we have a game after that. And another one after that and after that. So we got a long way to go. I can't be emotionally broken after the first game of the year. And maybe that was a little bit of what happened with Florida State, is that they got, first of all, they were emotionally broken last year, not getting into the playoff from the year before. I don't think anybody ever recovered. Well, Coach Kleiman can't be that. He can't say, yeah, this is the biggest game on our schedule and we lost and I don't know what to do. Well, I mean, come on, people. I mean, I get it, but that's not how he's going to act, and that's not how a head coach should act. I think what he did was perfect. Got to move on. We're on to next week.
Grant, last year, Georgia Tech was supposed to get rolled over by Florida State. So the context of that wasn't that they lost the game. They lost to someone they perceived as far inferior. Iowa State is not that way. There's a great deal of respect between these programs. And I'll say it again, this might be the Big 12 championship come season's end. We got a lot of football to play, but they're both worthy of that. I seem to remember, let's just get a hypothetical going here. Let's say Ohio State lost to their rival Michigan. and it was an upset. It really hurt. The fans turned on the coach, turned on the team. Is it possible that Ohio State then could go have a successful season and win a national championship? I mean, as Brien always says, Big B always says, it's fan is short for fanatic, and the fanatics were overreacting. And I hate to be the guy to say calm down, but it's still out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's still out there, and fans do need to calm down. I mean, I wrote a whole feature story on it the other day. We got 11 more of these things to go, and you brought up a good point. I mean, hypothetically, what if Ohio State did lose a big game, and maybe there isn't a whole lot of season left, and maybe they don't win a national championship, but who knows if that would happen. But I mean, I've talked to a few guys after the game. I talked to John Pastore and Garrett Oakley at the press conference today, and they know they were better than that football team. They know they shouldn't have lost that one. And yeah, it stings, but I mean, they're not going to let this one get them down. They're not going to bow their heads like, we alluded to it. Florida State did last year, and we all know what happened to Northwestern. I mean, they beat Nebraska, where they didn't win a game in the States the rest of the year. So there is some curses going over in Ireland, but I 100% don't think that's going to happen to this Kansas State team. They're hungry. They have something to prove. Iowa State's got their number, and they're not going to they're not going to bow their head between their legs and let some teams walk over them. They want to make a statement against North Dakota. They want to beat Army, and then they want to come out strong in conference play against a team like Arizona and get the job done. So there's a whole lot of season left. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of good football that's going to be played. There's going to be players that are going to step up, and this is a football team that's got a lot left to prove. And don't be surprised this is a team that ends up in Arlington, come a couple months from now.
Yeah, that Arizona game, I think, is the start of conference play, even though it's a non-conference game. It's a conference opponent. That's your measurement. You're going to get measured against them, and you got to go take care of business in that. So, John, these next 2 weeks, get home, play two very different opponents, and hopefully heal yourself before you go into the long stretch of playing 9 more conference opponents. They almost just need to hit the reset and act like it didn't happen, but you've got to move on. Bill Snyder always said it. You can't let an opponent beat you twice. And I don't think they're going to lose North Dakota, but Mr. Grove, they got to play well, don't they?
Yeah, it's looking at the schedule a little bit further, Fitz. It's just kind of interesting to see the lineup of how the teams are set. You play against a very familiar foe in Iowa State, who are just about almost the exact same team from a roster standpoint and from a quarterback standpoint, coaching staff standpoint, on how they're able to get their teams prepared and ready. Then you got North Dakota, in which that should be more of a name your score game. Then you got Army, just a whole different beast. As you guys mentioned earlier, with the triple option threat, it's gonna be a war of attrition as well. That is going to be a difficult challenge for some of the linemen, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side, to really get through as well. And then going through Arizona, and you, Fitz, you mentioned it's not only going to be treated as a conference game, but it's also kind of setting up as a trap, because it's also a Friday night road game. And compared to what we've seen in years past, there's been a lot of top 5, top 10 teams that even struggle on the road in years past. And going all the way to Tucson, Arizona, just a few weeks after you've gone halfway across the world is it's going to be another. It won't be the biggest travel lag, but it's still going to be a pretty solid travel lag. But I would have to say, with that said, it's likely going to be the next 3 or 4 games here, including UCF. They'll likely be the easiest stretch for K-State, in which those are like the games you have to win, or if you lose any of those, then things are going to turn upside down real fast, real quick as well. So I think the best case scenario right now for K-State is that you go through undefeated until October 5th when you go to Waco, Texas.
Yep, I totally agree. They've got a good stretch to heal with here. And speaking of healing, Gills, they're kind of beat up. They got beat up at the end of practice. We talked about it, that they were fairly healthy, but Ryan Davis is going to be in the rotation. Malcolm Elkhorn Crowder, who I swear played in the game, and Coach Kleiman said he was ruled out. I swear he was on the field at one point. I think it was in that final drive. I swear, what does he wear? 55? I swear he came in, but they got to get healthy. They got to get some of these dudes back. It's too early in the year to have attrition like this. And I don't know what happened, if they got some bad mojo in practice, but they were shorthanded in some spots, and it showed up. They needed to keep rotating, and he thought a lot of the problem in that second half with stopping the run game was just Iowa State wore them down, and I would agree with that. I think there were some schematic things there they didn't respond to, but injuries have already been an issue for this K-State team, and I'm just going to be blunt here. I'm a fan of Chris Kleiman, but I wouldn't say that we're shorthanded. Next man up. Yep. You're not sure if you run out of players and you have nobody, you're shorthanded. But the next guy's got to step up. And honestly, they didn't play at the level they needed, or they weren't trusted at the level they needed by the coaches because they didn't play some guys.
I was about to say the same thing, that his comments were interesting, right? I'm not sure if I would have said that either, but you cannot seek comfort with anything, and it has to be a next man up mentality. And for what you might want to label as a developmental program, right? You should have guys ready to go. And if they're not ready to go, well, throw them in the fire. And like Des Purnell and Austin Romaine, your Will Howards of the world, you've done this with players before. And I know that might not yield you the results you want in that game itself, but you're going to give guys such valuable experience. And I understand, by the way, guys, that with the new roster size, it's a lot tougher now to kind of track this and handle your roster with a smaller size, but you can't seek comfort with, blaming injuries. I don't know, Kleiman wasn't blaming injuries. You can watch his press conference from Monday, and he wasn't necessarily making an excuse, but you do have to have that next man up mentality. And guys are going to get tired. Guys are going to have attrition. I think it was Ian Campbell, our former player roundup that we're doing every week. Ian Campbell mentioned he wasn't, I'm obviously paraphrasing here. He mentioned he was never a really special player. He wanted it more than the guy on the other side of him, right? And so, you're going to be – I think he mentioned Toby was worn down in the fourth quarter, and I'm sure he was. I mean, he was out there a lot. I'm sure a lot of those DNs, and, we have the snap counts from PFF up on our site as well at GoPowercat. Well, Big B, I'm sure you can attest this. As a player, at times you were probably pretty tired in that purple uniform. Well, yeah, guy across from you, go get it, man. You got to want it more.
Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, the fact of the matter is he could have come out and said they just physically whipped us. I mean, he could have said that, because you talk about the fourth quarter. I said this on the postgame podcast. If there was another quarter left, Iowa State might have had 300 yards rushing, because we literally could not stop it once they figured out, we're just going to run it right at him. Oh, yeah, that works. But I get what he's saying. But you're right, Gills. It's like it's the next guy. Okay, a guy got hurt. Okay. And I understand having limited roster sizes, but we're not talking about, when we're talking about limited roster sizes, you're not talking about, the guy that's the backups that you can't have anymore. You're not even talking about third string guys that you can't necessarily have anymore on your team. So if you're talking about running through all of those football players on your roster, well, I get it, but yeah, I mean, it's tired shouldn't be an excuse. And if tired is an excuse, and I'm not saying anybody made that, I'm not trying to say that, but I get guys being tired, but okay, Iowa State guys weren't tired. I mean, they played the same conditions you did. They were just as tired. Now, I understand the defensive aspect of it, and we talked about this on the post game, because Iowa State, they went on a long drive, score. Kansas State scores in a play. Well, then the defense is right back out there, and maybe they got 5 minutes of real-time rest. Maybe they got that. More than likely, it's a little less than that. And so I get it, but hey, I mean, what do you want them to do? Just, hey, K-State's tired. We need to call an extra timeout. They're not going to do that, man. It's just, you've got to make the plays when it's time to make the plays. It's just period, end of story. And I think not enough Kansas State, and I get it, not enough of us want to just tell the truth. Iowa State was just the better football team and made the plays they needed to make to win the game. Now, does that mean they're an overall better football team?
Nope.
No, it doesn't mean that. But in this game, they just made the plays they had to do, or they had to make to win, and they won. It's just that simple. It's that simple.
There's a old adage in baseball, hit it where they ain't. I felt like this game was defined by run it where they ain't, because Iowa State in the first half, those running backs were going with the flow, and they started cutting back against it because K-State's defense continued to pursue to follow the line of scrimmage, or the offensive line down the line of scrimmage, and they were cutting it back against the grain, and it worked. There was one play that I can't remember who it was, got him down, but that was going to go a long way, if not all the way, if he hadn't, because there's no one back there anymore. They'd all flowed to that side where the movement was headed. And on the counter side of that, not to be oversimplistic about picking up a yard, but if they've got no one over your guards, why don't you follow a guard for a yard? They were waiting for Avery Johnson on the outside. If you go back and look, once Avery scored the touchdown, they didn't let him get around the tackle. The running alley for him was going to be between the tackles, the guard spots. Those gaps were lightly defended in some of those short yardage situations. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the play calling. I didn't understand what they were trying to do there. But Big B, I want to go right back to you. One of the things you're doing for us this year is offensive line in the trenches. You're going to talk about this every week. It's one of the cool content items. Our managing editor, Ryan Gilbert, I'm saying so much nice stuff about him. I feel odd. I'm uncomfortable with this, who's done a really good job revamping our content schedule as one of the VIP pieces that we're doing now on a weekly basis. A lot of new VIP stuff. If you're not subscribing, we're at 50% off right now at GoPowercat. Get over there and do that. You can go just glance at the front page and see there's some cool stuff going on right now. But Big B, give me your overall thoughts on the offensive line without stealing your thunder for that article.
There's work to be done. There's definitely work to be done. There were some good points. There were some bad points, but the same problem persists. I'll just say that. And they got to get it fixed, because this was just one opponent. There's going to be others that understand how to stop Kansas State from running the football. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit. And I can say this, because I didn't mention this in the article, is Avery Johnson running, quarterback power game. It was there. It was there were plenty of times that it was there. Avery doesn't want to run inside. Nope. And I'm not blaming him, because even when he got outside, once he got out there and it was time to get tackled, he just folded up and balled up and didn't want to take shots. That doesn't mean that he's afraid. It just means maybe they've told him, hey, you can't get hurt. You can't fight for an extra yard or anything, and you can't play football that way. You just can't play football that way. I'm sorry. You're going to have a quarterback that once it's time to get hit, you don't want him to take a shot. Well, he's going to take a shot. That's how football works. And then you're going to let him run the football on 4th and 1. You're going to take a shot. That's how it works. But to be honest with you, Fitz, the play was there. It was poorly executed by the offensive line. Can't have an offensive lineman outside zone. Your job is to block somebody in a zone, and you don't, and you let a safety run right past you. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and it's a good thing y'all weren't here, because you would have said Big B is crazy, because that's exactly how I was acting when I was watching the game. It was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it, and that's what happens. And I don't know. They've got a ways to go, but they can get there. They absolutely can get there, but you just got to make some changes. And I'm not saying to personnel. I'm just talking about, I think it's more of a mindset. I've said this the last couple of years, and I'm never going to back off of it, because I think I'm right. So I'm pretty bullish on it. I don't think they have a nasty mindset to just maybe push a guy after the whistle a little bit, grind a guy when he's down. The guy that you hate to be on your team or to play against, but you love him on your team. I don't think we have enough of those guys, and you need those guys on your offensive line.
Not just on the offensive line, real quick, guys. Austin Romaine and that little scuffle on the Iowa State sideline. I'm not saying go out and get a personal foul, but chirp back a little bit at him, right?
Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it, Gills. He was over there basically by himself for a while, And I'm like, hold on a second, guys. There needs to be 20 people over there pushing, shoving to grab him out of there. And for 2 or 3 seconds, it was him by himself surrounded. I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I was physically embarrassed. I could not believe it, guys. I apologize for being emotional about it. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, that it really happened. We let a guy get surrounded on their sideline, and nobody got pushed, nobody got shoved, nothing. Just, hey, okay, let's go get him. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I agree. Thanks for the DD topic. Grant and John, this kind of for both of you. People have been critical of Avery Johnson, I think unfairly. His statistics are actually very good. And, the running stats aren't what we expect from him, but there's, as we've been saying, there's some reasons for that are out of his control. My one thing is, I understand the coaches value Avery at a very high level because the backups are completely unproven, and that could completely derail the season if he's injured. I understand that. But if you're worried about that, why the F are you running him on 4th down? And Avery has to have a sense of the importance of this play, but not the other play. You know what I mean? It's the 4th quarter. You don't turn your back. Put your head down and drive that mother, right back off the where he's trying to stop you. I felt like Iowa State took down K-State ball carriers short of the sticks, and Iowa State's ball carriers fought to get past those sticks. That little nuance was the difference. And on that 4th down play, Avery Johnson, either don't put the ball in his hands or you have to run the risk on that specific play that you're not doing the rest of the game. Thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, you killed it right there. I mean, I think when the time comes, you've got to put your head down. You've got to get a yard, put your body on the line. And, it's fair to say, you don't want to, because, I mean, you brought up a good point. The quarterback position is completely unproven behind Avery Johnson. I think I looked at the other day, there's 8 collegiate snaps all time behind Avery Johnson in this room right now. So obviously you don't want him to get hurt, but I mean, it's the 4th quarter, it's 4th and 1. You need a yard. You got to keep your defense off the field. You've got to go down and get some points there. So, take the risk, put your body on the line. And it wasn't like Iowa State had any eye-popping hits that really took down runners all day, unless I missed one somewhere. But I mean, I feel like in that situation, you've got to put your body on the line, not only for your teammates, for your fan base, for your coaches. And you said it, Fitz. I think people were very critical of Avery Johnson. I thought he had a fine game. I mean, and Big B touched on it earlier. Iowa State just made defensive adjustments and schemes that worked out. After he scored that touchdown, they were not letting him get outside. They were not letting him use his legs, but it doesn't take away the fact 4th and 1 late in the game, you've got to go get a yard.
John?
Yeah, especially to Grant's point as well. I mean, you really gotta let him do his own thing, especially when Kleiman has, throughout the past 2 or 3 years now, put an emphasis on playing to win games. Now, part of me doesn't necessarily agree, because at some points you're just kind of playing behind the 8 ball, and you're taking several gambles. And Matt Campbell did too, but he made the right adjustments necessary. But I'm a little bit shell shocked that K-State did not use Avery Johnson's running abilities as efficiently, and I believe it was Jace Brown who had the longest run of the day as well. Now, it doesn't help that Dylan Edwards went out early on, and I'm sure that kind of sent some ripple effects when it came to the play calling of the game. But his legs are the best asset they have on the offense when Dylan Edwards is injured, and maybe just overall. Yet Kansas State just failed to leverage that advantage, and I thought they'd use that a little bit more, even when it comes to that 4th and 1 conversion, because again, you're trying to win a game, but the execution just wasn't there. The execution just wasn't there. They had several drives where they could have scored easily, but they were deadlocked for the most part. And to Big B's point as well, the offensive line was stalling. It was evident on several drives between the 2nd and the 3rd quarters. Just not allowing for a whole lot of gaps to open up for Avery, nor the running backs, Joe Jackson or Devon Rice for that matter too.
Fitz, I know you tossed it to the young guys. You didn't include me. Can I be a young guy? Is that okay? Am I young
No.
enough? I have a thought on Avery, real
No.
quick.
I would like to point out that the one night I'd planned on having a beer with my young guys turned into a chaotic mess of technology. So Ron Gilbert took the helm and volunteered bravely and selflessly to drink beer with the young people because Gills, how old are you now?
26.
26. In the eyes of a college student, you're old.
Well, Drew Smith, their professor, I had to lead them and monitor them for the night at the bars. And
yes, you were in charge of that. And I think you did a great job. Nobody was arrested that we know of.
He's indoctrinating the youth, Fitz.
The youths.
Well, at least he tried, but he might have done something to one of my shoes as well while we were there as well. I'm not going to disclose any of that though.
We're going to have to cut that out because I have a feeling that is completely inappropriate because he likes feet. Go ahead, Gilbert, with your thoughts on Avery.
All I was really going to say is Avery, yeah, you can bring up that fourth down where he couldn't pick up a yard, and that is a game-changing play. But Dylan's fumble and Joe Jackson's fumble, the number of dropped passes from his receivers, the dropped interception on defense, there were a number of big plays in this game that were not at all Avery's fault. So could he have been better? Of course. You're the quarterback, you lose the game. That's always just naturally going to largely fall on a QB. Win or lose, they're going to get too much credit when they win. When they lose, it's always on them. And that's just kind of how things are. But I can give you half a dozen reasons off the top of my head that have absolutely nothing to do with Avery Johnson. So his numbers were great, and numbers usually tell the story. They back it up in this game. He could have been better, of course, but Avery is far down the list of mess ups in this game from Kansas State.
Yeah, I don't think Avery. I don't think people should be blaming him at all. I mean, the execution, like I said, there's spots there that he could have been better, but so could everybody else. The 4th and 1, I get it. He should have got the yard, but I'm an old offensive lineman. That's more on the offensive line than it was on Avery Johnson. Block a guy in your alley. Stop blocking 2 people. You don't need to do that. And that was more execution on his part. But the one thing I will say, and I apologize, Fitz, is they got to stop running quarterback power with the quarterback that you're basically telling not to take hits. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You have to stop doing that because, again, the plays were there. I'm bashing the O-line, but when they do a good job, you got to commend them. They're there to get a yard, but if you got a guy that you're saying, hey, it's take it a little easy, we got to stop doing this, then you have to stop calling those plays because he doesn't want to run in there because of what you said. Either it's what you said or he just doesn't want to do it. One of the two, but you have to stop doing it. And this is 2 years of this stuff.
I agree. If you're afraid of the injury, don't put him in situations to be injured, or do things like they did with the Jace Brown running out of the Wildcat. Okay, Big B, I want to go back to you because you're the former player. I'm the son of a.
Hey, Grant's a former player too, Fitz. Put some respect on his name.
Yeah.
Grant was a kicker.
Show the ring, Grant. Grant, show the ring. Come on.
He's a kicker. But I'm the son of a football coach, which we know damn well means nothing. You don't inherit all the knowledge. But why didn't they go back to the Wildcat another time? They set up another level of play with the fake pitch. They never went back to it. I don't understand why you put that on the table and then don't give me a second serving. Make them stop it before you quit it. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And usually, like good play callers, you call plays to set up other plays.
Yes.
I mean, that's how it's done. And you give a defense a look, you run something, you give them the same look, you run something else. You give them the same look, you run something else. And K-State never went back to that. And it's like you said, I just didn't understand. There's a lot of things that we can talk about this football game that didn't go right. And look, first game, Matt Wells, hadn't called plays in a while. I understand all of that stuff, but to me, some of this, it was just inexcusable because that's offensive coordinator 101. You know, they do that in high school. They understand, hey, we call plays setting up something else and give them the same look, but just run 3-4 different plays out of that exact same look, formation, all of that stuff. And we just didn't do that. And that's just got to be something that K-State does more often. I don't know. I'd like to be able to answer that question, Fitz, but I really don't know because it's part of being a dynamic offense. I mean, it's part of all of that stuff. I mean, we don't have a fullback, so it's tough when you're trying to get 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s. If you don't have a fullback and you're trying to run the ball inside, it makes it difficult. Which again, the one on the goal, or I shouldn't say the goal line, but in the first half, you know, on the 5, that 4th and 1, I'm like, well, if you're going to run that, why don't you just run the Wildcat and use a tight end as a lead blocker? If you do that, that's a first down easy. But you don't do that, and then there's nobody to block the safety. And I'm like, well, what'd you expect? Of course the safety's going to come hit him in the backfield because there's nobody left to block him. So I don't know. We can all be critical. We can all go back in hindsight 2020, and that's how this thing works, though. But at the same time, the K-State's got to be better in doing that. We've been screaming, be more dynamic. We wanted Matt Wells to be more dynamic. Well, that was an opportunity to be more dynamic, and we blew it.
And when they were dynamic on that play, big gain.
Yeah.
The double move by Jace, which was absolutely beautiful. That was an NFL level cut out of that. And he's wide open. Did we do it again? Did we see it again? No. I think I don't want to be that guy, but they were a little bit too conservative for my taste.
Yep.
And I thought they should put more on the table. But let's be honest. Someone brought up, I don't remember who. I know it was Gills because it was intelligent. I thought Iowa State wanted it more, period. I thought it wasn't just about schematics. It was about the will to win on some of those plays. And I'm not comfortable with Kansas State being the one that doesn't have fire in their shorts because as Big B brought it up, we saw that in that little scuffle on the sideline. Grant, you got to be dicks once in a while. And you got to just have this sense that we're not going to lose. If you're thinking we might lose this, you've lost. All right.
100% right. You've got to have that fire in your belly. I mean, you've got to show some emotion, and it's what Kansas State football is built off of. I mean, you're known as Fertility U. You can't win a football game, and you bring in a head coach like Bill Snyder, and you're built on walk-ons, and you're built on wanting it more than the guy across from you. And, you know, maybe we're not seeing that as much as we used to. And, you know, I don't know if it's a coaching staff, you know, just not putting fire in their guys like they used to, or what the whole deal is in the locker room. But you're absolutely right. Iowa State just simply wanted it more. They were changing things up, and it's not like they were doing anything special. I think they just, you know, were getting the job done, and Kansas State simply couldn't convert on spots where they needed to the most. And hopefully it changes soon, because you can't afford to play a football game like we did against other quality opponents down the road. So something's got to give here something soon. I hope it does, but everything I've heard in the locker room and around the building, things will change. But I believe what we saw on Saturday was not Kansas State football and what this university was built on with it as a football program.
Thank you. That as a guy that has been in a Bill Snyder locker room, or where were you? You were in Chris's locker room. Who were you?
I was in Chris.
But you've been around this all your life. You're a Manhattanite, so you're damn well aware of all this. John, I'm gonna give you an interesting setup, and there's not going to be a question here, so I expect you to run with it because I like to talk, and I like corny metaphors and analogies. Playing in bad weather is like eating ribs. Either put your face in it and enjoy it, or you have the towel so you clean your hands after every one. With that metaphor, K-State seems to be the team that doesn't want to get dirty, doesn't want to have rib sauce all over their face. They want to be clean and pretty. That's not how football goes, particularly when you're playing on real grass, in rain, on what honestly is a field built for rugby, and they don't care about that being muddy. But it's time to say, yeah, let's go get it, man. There's a foot of snow. There's a rain falling. It's slippery, but let's be that team. I don't see it, man. I don't see it right now.
Not to mention as well, I mean, you want to talk about the towels and everything. It kind of makes me wonder now if the wide receivers, if there's a wide receiver or a tight end or two that actually use the towel to drive their hands off or try to drive their gloves off to try and come away with more receptions because I mean it was slippery, it was kind of misty out there. Also, it was natural grass as well. And that's what Iowa State tends to play on. Not using that as a full-on excuse, but it does seem as if Iowa State, for whatever reason, just comes prepared in the worst climate, in the worst climate as well. We saw that last year when it was 5 degrees outside. K-State's wide receivers couldn't catch anything last year whatsoever. I mean, they had so many opportunities to move the ball down the field with the likes of Dante Cephas, Keegan Johnson, but they just kept dropping pass after pass after pass from Avery Johnson, and Iowa State was just able to just barely pull away. It was, in several ways, it was a game in which K-State probably didn't want to be there last year in Ames, but they kept things competitive for the most part. But this game in Dublin, it just felt different because yes, there was the added elements that came into play, but you should have expected that a little bit too, considering that. I mean, Ireland for the most part is it's not the best conditions. I consider as kind of the Seattle of Europe, where it's just always rainy. It's kind of misty outside,
Right.
and if you're not prepared for those kind of elements, kind of like we saw in the passing game throughout the first half with both teams, but it just seemed as if Iowa State got more equipped to it a lot faster. And again, they made the right adjustments necessary. And I suppose the offense for K-State to a lesser degree got the passing game a little bit more open. But if you're not prepared for the elements in play, then you're gonna have moments like you did in Ireland, and even moments like you did in Houston last year. So I don't know. It's kind of a pointless conversation that you should not be having, especially given knowing again what you're going to go into. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing. And I imagine too, like the field itself, not only just made more difficult for players to try and come up with receptions as well, but the field as well, just causing players to slip around, and several receivers were a little bit imbalanced, coming with several receptions from Avery too. So that explains some more of the additional incompleted passes too. So
there's some reality to this, that Kansas State is a team built with speed, and those conditions bottle that up. Iowa State, this version of them, is going to be a headstrong, let's get in the mud and play. It really did advantage them. I'm going to be really honest. His name's escaping me right now. The running back who caught the big pass that pretty much terminated the game. Yeah, thank you. That might be the slowest running back I've ever seen. But
you never watch Najee Harris.
But guess who made the big play? Didn't matter about his speed on that, did it? In fact, it benefited them that he didn't get in the end zone and ran it out. Gills, I asked Coach Kleiman about this because I was genuinely interested in this. Dylan Edwards, an enormous muff, just kind of changed the tone of the game. Didn't really impact the score in any way because Iowa State gave the ball back, but K-State played on their half of the field the entire first half. But more than that, when he sprains his ankle or whatever, he damages his ankle on that play, out with it went a lot of the pre-planned plays. I think the initial script also was trashed because now you've got Joe Jackson in the game, who's a much different player. Is it legitimate to complain about that or wonder about that?
You know what? We talked about not wanting to seek comfort and make excuses, but yes, I mean, Dylan Edwards it was 52 out of the 59 offensive snaps Joe Jack was on the field. Like, that's, I mean, who would have thought going into the game he'd be on the field for half the snaps? Maybe that would be his ceiling. I know Kleiman touched on that on Monday, but of course it changes everything. I mean, of course it changes everything, but you can't just sit here and say K-State wins with Dylan Edwards. Of course, there's a better chance, but and obviously everything that happened with Dylan, I will steer clear of that. But what I will say, Dylan Edwards, you can go back and watch it on the broadcast. Muffs the punt on the ground, and his head's down. Gets up, walks off the field, and his head is hanging down. What's the first thing your kindergarten t-ball coach tells you? Keep your head up when you make a mistake. That's what frustrates me most with Dylan Edwards. Faking it or not, or how hurt is he, that is not my place to discuss. But you have to have your head up, and you have to be there for your teammates. And I don't know if Dylan Edwards was on the sideline or in the locker room, and we weren't tracking him. I know you guys could probably answer that. I wasn't, but be not a cheerleader, but be a helpful hand on the sideline. Be a coach for Joe Jackson, right? You've got to be a strong presence. And when that first, before your offense even touches the football and you're hanging your head low, how does that set the stage for a good game in Ireland? So Dylan Edwards, that's what angers me most. I don't know if anger is the right word, but that's what's so frustrating. Keep your head up, man. Have a good attitude after that. What's the next, tough people do the next right thing, to steal a Jerome Tang quote. Do the next right thing. Don't hang your head low. Even if you are hurt, I think you can still keep your head up when you're walking off under your own power.
Yeah. I mean, rise from the ashes of your mistake. It had to be embarrassing. He was ready to make a big play, and in an instant, it becomes just the opposite. Well, it was a big play just for the wrong team. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up cautiously, and because I don't want to make a bigger deal out of this. Big B, as a former player, I feel for you. You've got to feel, because I do, for Avery Johnson and what took place in the post game with his family. But we all have family disagreements. We all settle those disagreements differently. I'm really uncomfortable with what happened, but I'm guessing this wasn't totally unheard of before everyone carried a camera around in their pocket. But how big of a distraction could this be for the starting quarterback, let alone the team?
I don't think it'll be a distraction for the team, because, if somebody asks you about it, kids nowadays, where they're different than what they were back when we were kids, I will say this: kids are more in tune with things that are not their business. So if somebody were to ask about somebody's parents or family, kids nowadays are more, hey man, it's not that big a deal, doesn't affect me, yada, yada, yada. Back when I was a kid, maybe we would have had a reaction. So I feel like kids are more in tune, maybe a little bit more mature, if you want to say that, in that area. So I don't think it's necessarily going to affect the team per se. It'll affect Avery. There's no question about that. Now, I don't think it'll affect him maybe on the field, because I think it's more he's embarrassed by his family. I think it's more of that. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with, okay, he's in the shotgun on 3rd and 7. He's going to be thinking, man, my dad and my brother got in a fight. I don't think that. I think it's more he's just embarrassed. I think it's more walking around on campus, people asking, snickering, saying those kinds of things, which is going to happen, so it's an embarrassment. Let's just call it what it is. But you're right, Fitz. It's not the first time this has happened. Won't be the last time this has happened. But everybody's got a phone, and you just got to deal with it. He's just got to deal with it. But do you know what? If he goes out and throws for 275, 3 touchdowns, and runs for another 100 yards and another touchdown, nobody will give a damn, and nobody will care, and nobody will even be mentioning it anymore. So for me, go out there and have yourself a day on Saturday, Avery, and it'll all be behind you, young man.
I agree. I think the fact that the facts were out there, and an apology came immediately after, within 24 hours. I think it's a Gronkowski moment that we can move on from. That's, you think the Gronks didn't battle at some point, but yeah, I'm uncomfortable with what I saw. But Gills, you might. I hope you remember this little sage advice I gave you. I don't give many things like that, but that Wednesday night when I had planned on going out, everything had gone wrong. I mean, we're having Wi-Fi issues. We're having problems with the back end of our admin that turned out not to be being in Ireland. There was a bug in there, and we were the first ones to encounter it. We were losing copies. Stories were disappearing. It was a mess. I was in a foul mood. And I told you, when you're a public person and you're in a foul mood, don't go try to drink it off. Don't go, I need to go out and, hang out, because that's the night someone's going to do something that isn't that big a deal, but it is what ignites you. And then it seems like an overreaction, because the person who gets the blunt of your anger wasn't really the source of the stress. Being a parent can't be easy. Being the parent of a quarterback can't be easy. Parent of a football player, and then parent of the quarterback. When so many fans think the quarterback should be perfect and are screaming in the stands about Avery, we don't know what happened before this. And I still can't perceive the result, but there's a whole bunch here that the camera never catches, nor will it, but you have to live with it.
If you want to find a silver lining too, this is a good lesson for everybody involved with the entire program to be smart, right? People are always watching. Like you said, Big B, everybody's got a cell phone on them. I don't know how that got posted on Twitter, guys, though. Twitter would not work. It was so funky over in Dublin. It was weird. But and also, right across the street from me here in Aggieville at Tubby's with what happened with Naquan Tomlin. Something like this that happens is unfortunate, but it's a good kind of reminder that you got to be smart and handle your alcohol. I Grant and John, you guys, and Sophie and Toby, all the gang that I was mentoring, right? We handled ourselves. We had a fun time, but it's a good reminder that you just need to have fun with it and not take life too seriously at times.
Yeah,
so that's my advice.
No, that's good. Going back to that Naquan Tomlin situation, the real problem there after the incident was the facts were unclear. We had people saying he punched a girl in the face, which didn't happen. And then at some point it becomes accepted. And Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, John, because but we heard he had been arrested. That was already circulating, that he was arrested in handcuffs. That did not happen. And there was a chance of that, just the story becoming a tale, not filled with facts. And that's what happened to Naquan in many ways. But this got tamped down pretty quickly, didn't it?
Yeah. With the whole Naquan Tomlin thing, it was all just word of mouth. You were kind of just listening to whatever someone was saying, and there was no video. It was yik yak, Twitter, Instagram. And that's probably, why things exploded like they did. And people were on Linton's lawn and all that stuff was going down. But, with the Johnsons, you knew exactly what you were getting. And you guys mentioned it. Twitter was weird over there. I had no idea it had happened. My dad was actually the one who had broke the news to me as we were interviewing Toby, I think. Yeah, you knew exactly what you were getting. And I honestly just feel more, sorry for Avery than anything. Because, first off, you play a good game and you're already getting criticisms from fans online. Then you check your phone, you see your father and your brother fighting in the street. He doesn't deserve that. And that's a lot of pressure on a 20-year-old kid or however old he is. So, and you guys mentioned he's just got to block it out. And at the end of the day, it's just football and you just got to go out there and play. And I hope everything ends up working out for him, because I do truly, I always felt bad for the kid growing up who's got the dad who's yelling in the stands and being obnoxious. And I can still think of multiple dads on my team that were like that, and think, well, Curtis wasn't like that too bad. But I just hope everything works out.
I think you just slipped up and admitted that Curtis broke your nose at some place.
It may have happened.
Yeah, may happen.
Real quick, guys. Yeah. I do think people should know that Avery Johnson, we're going to get him once a week. So if Avery Johnson speaks to the media following a game, he's not going to be on that Monday presser. So it was not unexpected that we didn't get Avery on this Monday.
Well, about halfway through this, what now is coming up on an hour-long show, I thought we're going to make it to 40 minutes and then we're going to be done. Here we are. We're about to flip over 1 hour, but let's wrap this up though with final thoughts on the trip. Whatever you want to talk about. John, you're up.
Well, Another thing that kind of popped up when talking about the Dylan Edwards special teams injury right before the game, it kind of raises a question, and I'm gonna ask Grant here, not to hijack anything, but does this put an indication on whether or not we'll see more of Dylan Edwards on special teams, or we'll see less of Dylan Edwards on special teams moving forward, given the implications of what could happen, like we saw in week 0?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a whole lot more of Dylan Edwards going forward. And it was mentioned today that, maybe a couple days ago, that this had been a problem in fall camp, and Dylan Edwards would have a great day, and then the next day, he was struggling on, fielding some of those returns. So I think there's going to be a lot more Sterling Lockett's of the world going forward. And Kazar, the special teams coordinator, touched on this in the press conference. We got him is. There's nothing more he loves than, coaching a player who's maybe a younger guy on the roster and working them into a every down player on either offense or defense. And I thought that was really weird that, we did see Dylan, because he has been promoted to running back 1 this season. But, when you have a guy like Dylan Edwards, who's as dynamic and explosive as he is, that's not a guy you keep on the sideline. But, after week 1 and the fumble and the injury, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a whole lot more of Dylan Edwards.
Gotcha.
Gills?
I remember looking over to Cole, I think after Sterling caught the following punt, I believe, and we're just like, there you go. You can be trusted, right? That's such a big part. It don't matter how fast you are, your elusiveness, your quickness, your speed. If you can't catch the punt, man, that's where it all starts, and that was a huge play of the game. So, yeah, I don't know if you were tossing it to me for that or for my final thoughts, but I had a fun time in Ireland, except for I had to be around Fitz for a week, but I was around a different Fitzgerald. Becky was awesome to be around your wife. You did good.
She's pretty cool. She's pretty cool. She keeps me on track, because God knows I need it. Big B, I want your final thoughts, but also I don't want to be that guy that said, well, when Bill Snyder was coach, but I'm going to do it. He valued special teams for a reason. It was an area of the game when building a program he could have an advantage. He knew if we worked harder as a team on special teams than Nebraska or Texas, maybe that's the thing that'll swing a game. And it proved true. But one thing he never did, sacrifice ball security in the name of a playmaker.
Mm-mm.
If you were going to be insecure with the ball, you were not going to touch the ball.
Nope.
And in fact, one season, I noted that after so many great punt returners, or the threat of a great punt returner, he turned, he was using a receiver named Mitch Running, who I used to joke, Mitch Running slowly, who was a Curry Sexton type guy, a Warner type of guy that made no mistakes, was in the right place, doing the right thing. And all of a sudden, Running was the punt returner. He was never going to really break many, but he never made mistakes. And I think that needs to be something. If Sterling Lockett picks up 8 yards, 5 yards on punt returns and never fumbles or muffs, I'm in. Yeah. Because right now, special teams suck for Kansas State. And I don't mean, they're actually awful, but from the standard that has been set and expected and understood the importance of it, it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, you can say they suck. I'll say they suck. They don't do anything. Like they don't make special teams special, and even in place kicking, we didn't even try to kick a field goal. You can give me all the excuses you want about, we thought touchdowns were going to be the name of the game. Okay, fine. But kick field goals when you have an opportunity to kick field goals. It's just that simple, and so the special teams haven't been special in I don't know how many years. And at some point, you're going to have to do that. And look, the best teams, and people can argue who the best teams at K-State were, but all of those teams and whatever team you want to go back to played phenomenal special teams. Every single one of them played phenomenal special teams. So to not be doing that now is we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice, to be honest with you. It's one of those things people used to call K-State special teams They don't say that anymore, and they shouldn't, because it hasn't been. You got to get back to it. It's just that simple. You talk to me about all the emphasis you put on it. We don't see that. We used to see the emphasis that was put on it in the game. We used to see it on a weekly basis. We don't see that anymore, and it's troubling.
Agreed.
But as far as my final thoughts, though, the sky didn't fall. The sun came up the next day. A lot of football left. Disappointing win or loss. Don't get me wrong. We wanted to win the game, but if we win the rest of them, will we remember this one? That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm glad you walked me into that because I was trying to think of what my final thoughts would be. I go back to 2022. That felt like the TCU game that took place in Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. And there was injuries in that game. And no, they've lost their quarterback. And Will Howard stepped up. And we know how that season ended. And we know who they played to win the Big 12 title. Yeah. The world didn't end when you lost to the Frogs in that contest. And it won't end when you lost to the Cyclones, as long as you go take care of your stuff. Gills, what is my theory with what a good employee does?
Takes care of their stuff.
Yep. I walked you into it. I couldn't get you to say it again. Dang it. That is it for the Insiders Week 1. We'll be live next week, hopefully. Hopefully we're all live, because if we're not, the alternative really sucks. I don't want that. It'd be a really boring podcast if we were all dead.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.